Vice President of the Warehouse Association of India. Let's give a warm round of applause for founder and managing director, Coign Consulting, Mr. Arif Siddiqui, everybody. Come on. Can I hear you? No, he's not going to come on the stage like that. Can we do a little better? Yeah. I know we're less people, but I think we are powerful.
Good evening, everyone. It's been a long day, and we're about 1.5 hours behind schedule. I have a hard stop at 6:30, so therefore I will keep it a little crisp and try to make it fast. It's very important for us to understand the entire concept of the gradation of warehouse and the specifications of the warehousing industry. I still remember 1991 when I started my journey in contract logistics in a company, erstwhile company called as AFL Logistics in Delhi. And we used to give a one-liner spec, just one-line specifications to our property dealers. And I remember there used to be a property dealer in Okhla called as Mr. C. Lal. He used to be our realtor, now as you call them. Okay, and the one specification used to be, I want a warehouse of 5,000 square feet. That's all. And we would get warehouses at that time. Slowly, as contract logistics or third-party logistics as a service became critical and had to become profitable, I realized that the efficiency in a warehouse is what will bring in the profitability of operating a warehouse. And that is when we started realizing that the specifications of warehouse can't be just the space. And that's when we started building, I started writing the specifications of not at that time an A-grade facility, but a facility that was required for third-party logistics service. Then came in 1996, when a little more detailed specifications, when we started realizing that column positions were coming in between the operations processes inside the facility. And we realized that, these columns are at very, very close distances. And if I had a little more sparse column space, then it would help us in further improving the way we were moving inside the warehouse. And these columns were acting as obstacles. And that's when we realized that we wanted bigger columns. To get bigger columns, we had to move out of RCC facilities, and then we got into steel buildings. There was no PEB manufacturer at that time in the country, and I still remember I went to Kuwait, to the head office and headquarters of Kirby, and that's when we said we want this specification, and the advent of the jack beam was then made in 1996. So that became the second specification. Then came the third specification that our customers wanted us to give them more cubic capacity and storage capacity in a warehouse. And that's when we said these 5, and believe me, when we said 5 meters, you say 15 feet. It used to be said as if it's a great number. And then we settled at 6 meters. And that's when I imported the first Kirby building in 1996 in the country, when Kirby in India did not exist. That became the third specification. Then we moved on. In the year 2000, we again got a customer, and that's when we realized that the number of transactions that this customer had were so many that we needed more shutters, as you call them now, or docks, to administer the vehicles. And that's exactly when the number of shutter standardization came in, that we wanted at least one shutter for every 10,000 square feet. And that's when I started writing that you need one shutter per 10,000 square feet. Dock levelers, then came dock shelters, and then we started feeling very hot in the warehouse. And when the heat increased in the warehouse, we realized that our workers who were working in the warehouse were not very happy, and their efficiency and productivity was increasing. Therefore, we had to hire more number of people in the warehouse. That added to the cost. And we said, how do we make this place a little better? From ridge ventilators, we discovered roof monitors. And from roof monitors, we said, I went to Israel. Obviously, I would not like to go now. But at that time, I went to Israel, and that's where I found a company called as Polynom Barkai. Polynom Barkai is an organization that manufactures the sandwiched air bubble insulation, which many of us call Polynom. And that's when I got the first role of insulation or Polynom insulation in India. I can continue to speak for hours in telling you what are the firsts I did. And finally, in 2005, I wrote the first detailed specification, which is a 2-pager specification of best in class. There were no gradation at that time. Best in class, fit for purpose warehouse. Today, we are all sitting in front. I'm standing in front of you, and we have specs, very detailed specs, that are requirements that fall on your lap by your customers, and it contains details of the building, the flooring, the boundaries, the estate roads, the traffic movement and traffic circulation, etc., fire, and so on and so forth. Similarly, flooring became a very, very important aspect. As we went up, we realized that the racking systems were putting substantial load onto the flooring, and we ended up with cracked floors. That's when I happened to have gone to the United States, and I found a company called as Sumeru, which manufactures machines that does laser screed floors. And that's when you got the BSTR-34 floor in India. So with this information, what I intend to tell you is that the industry has ever evolved and will continue to evolve. There are still miles to go before we sleep. We just heard, currently we're about 350 million square feet of total warehousing between A and B grade warehousing, in which about 180 and 180 is A and B. And it is estimated that by 2027, 2028, we will end up with about 600 million square feet. With 600 million square feet, we still have another 250 million miles to cover. And look at the opportunity that it brings to all of you. And I was doing a quick math, that if not 700, but if about 400 of you deal in warehousing in India, each one of you has an opportunity in the next 2 years to make 2 crores through brokerage. That's the opportunity. However, we're still, as I mentioned, we have a long way to go. One of the important things that I want to give, apart from the presentation, as a message to our brokers, is to improve our nomenclature of technical elements. There is no floor called as FM2 floor. Please stop using the word FM2 floor. Okay? FM2 is basically it is a standard for moving forklifts on a floor And it talks about the gradation in terms of elevational difference and level difference. So we should start now. I would expect going forward in the next 2-3 years, I would expect our brokers, who are going to be important middlemen between customers and the developers, to also improve the technical knowledge, because you are selling an industrial real estate. And industrial real estates deliver technical aspects of the building. We are a company that is into warehouse innovation and design. And I'm going to be talking here in terms of standards of warehouses. India is going through the complete change in terms of thinking next. And when we talk about thinking next, we are talking about the evolution of what we do today and the changes that we need to do from where we are today and move ahead. For sure, we need to look at our past, but moving ahead is necessary. If we don't, then we will not be able to support the government's endeavor and the country's national endeavor to soon become a $10 trillion economy. Each one of us has a role to play in that $10 trillion. Let's look at what the National Logistics Policy says and its coverage of standardization. Key elements of the National Logistics Policy, and fortunately I have had the honor of authoring this policy in terms of standardization. The whole vision of the policy is to develop a technologically enabled, integrated, cost-effective, resilient, sustainable, and trusted logistics ecosystem that will take this country's growth ahead. The policy talks about various elements, but that's not the topic of today. The topic of today is to look at the standardization. And standardization happens to be one of the elements. And here, the government is talking about, the policy talks about the standardization of physical assets, standardization of processes, taxonomy, and benchmarking of services, quality standards in the logistics sector. If this is what we are able to achieve, it will help us achieve three things. One, it's going to help us in reducing the overall logistics cost. B, it's going to improve the logistics service index of the country, which is called as LPI, the Logistics Performance Index of the country. And third, it's going to create a data-driven decision-making process. So these are the three targets of the country so that we can become a $10 trillion economy. Okay. The other aspects that are important for us to understand is how do we implement this aspect of standardization? What is important? The government has created something which they call as CLAP. This is a comprehensive logistics action plan, and the responsibility of CLAP, under the CLAP scheme, standardization of physical assets is the second most important criteria. And therefore, we've been talking about standardization and specifications. Those specifications that has become now quite popular, those specifications are part of the National Logistics Policy now. They have been introduced to the National Logistics Policy. As we move ahead, developers will have to ensure that they comply to those standards in order to get accreditation and recognition. So here, the warehousing standard, therefore, was given as a responsibility to the Warehousing Association of India to create a warehouse standard document. And here, the document was created by Warehouse Association of India under the directives of DPIIT. This document is available on the internet for reference purposes. However, as I mentioned, that it talks about fit-for-purpose warehouses. You will have to tweak those standards to the extent that they are relevant to your business. I'll give you one example. We talk of A-grade warehouses. That nomenclature has been given by the IPCs after they got that list from my side almost about 18 years back. And that specification, called as A-grade, if you take that to a cement industry, they get very insulted. They say a 12-meter or a 13 or a 15-meter warehouse is not fit for purpose because I don't stack material to that height. You go to a steel mill, they say, I don't need a warehouse of that standard, and for me, your 6 tons and 5 tons and 7 tons UDL that you talk about is not fit for purpose. I need minimum 10 to 15 tons load. So the policy may be talking about those standards, but what we need to is important for us is to understand that for those specific industries, the grain industry, the cement, I'm giving you just a few examples. There are hundreds of such examples of industries where the standardization or an A-grade definition may completely get disqualified in those specific industries with respect to some of these specifications that are currently being followed. So referring to most of the industry veterans, the industry by itself, and also looking at what is being developed by the top 10 developers in the country, the entire standardization document was created. We've spoken about, recently Professor spoke about, what are, the changes that are being done and what are driving these changes. I think these changes are very important. The growth in the organization, growth in the country, looking at the global practices and improvement, in industry-led demand. The e-commerce industry being the other major demand driver up until last year. These are various drivers that have driven the aspect of standardization. We've also looked at the build-to-suit requirements, which have also been coming from many of the developers and from buyers, rather from the occupiers, which have established their requirements, and that has also led to the standardization. Now, if you look at the book covers all these aspects. Aspects of pre-engineered building, structure, covers the aspects of structural standards with regards to structural civil structure. It talks about roofing standards. It talks about the flooring standards, which is so critical and so important, which is one of the largest costs that goes in building a warehouse now. Okay, it talks about all types of functional equipments like your dock shelters, dock levelers, and which we call as dock automation equipment. It talks about the way the warehouse would be used in the future for automation. Today, even in those floors that are now called as best-in-class floors, we face problems of running robots. Since I now also design the intralogistics of warehouses and large companies where complex processes are being operated, there we find problems even in running robots, cobots, AGVs, automated guided vehicles, major problems in running them on these floors, and therefore certain corrections have to be even done on those floors. So floor will continue to become an extremely critical element which unfortunately cannot be manufactured or produced in the factory. It has to be produced by the labor. It has to be produced by artisans who have got the skills to deliver that type of a floor. It has to be produced. Do you know that the best floors for defined movement or DM to run ASRS is actually produced by hand? It is not produced by a machine. And therefore, those skilled masons will be required as you move above the 14 and the 15-meter mark. Because the moment you move beyond 15 meters, the reach truck will fail to operate. After 15 to 16 meters, the reach truck will not. There is no equipment beyond that after 16 meters. You will have to move to a VNA, a very narrow aisle machine. And the VNA requires a defined movement floor. I want to warn all of you here that if you are getting into any specifications or leasing for your customers who have asked for a 16-meter warehouse, which is the next, I'm telling you that, that's the next move now. Okay, you remember this, you remember me for this forecast. From 12 meters will become obsolete. In most of the metropolitan cities, you will see that developers have started now thinking, and I am part of that discussion of with all the large developers, they've started thinking of moving up to 16 meters. And the moment you go beyond that point, all your articulated forklifts and reach trucks will stop operating. So even today, if you are into that discussion, please ensure that the floor is DM rated, that is defined movement rated. Otherwise, the VNA will not operate on that floor. Okay? So flooring standards become important. We don't think about joints, we don't think about sockets, we don't think about the fact, and I want to just bring this to your important notice, that when we talk about socket joints, do you know that the socket joint or the construction joint is the most dangerous element on the floor? Today you don't realize it because we, intralogistics designers, consume that socket joint within the rack. And that leads to reduced capacity optimization. But once the rents will become upper levels and will cross the 25, 26 rupees mark, which is not very far away, then wastage warehouses will be selected. The checklist that the brokers come with, that is given by the clients, that checklist will also carry capacity optimization. Okay? That capacity optimization will be most hurt if the sockets and the construction joints do not fall outside the aisle. A socket or a construction joint is dangerous because imagine yourself driving a cycle on a road where there is, a small trench made and your wheel gets stuck on that road while you're driving. What happens? You will fall off the cycle. Okay, that's exactly what construction joints can do to MHE. And imagine an MHE at a 16-meter height, if that gets stuck, its wheels get stuck, what will it do to the racks around it and to the pallet on it? So now this subject will become of constructing warehouses will become more and more user-oriented, functional orientation will take place, and it will become a use case-based construction. Well, the book of standardization is available, so I will keep talking to you about the practicalities, taking out of, the standards and so on and so forth. Floor protection system. I am yet to see, even in A-grade warehouses, the availability of a floor protection system. Do you know that the entire staging area of a floor, is highly trafficked with MHEs running in all directions, not only X and Y directions, but also on Z and A directions. And these are the equipments that damage your floor and the joints. None of these joints, and especially construction joints, are not armored. Please look for armory of these joints. Otherwise, your developer or the landlord will have to keep maintaining the floor. Very important aspect which is missing in today's. The overall responsibility of everything to do with a warehouse is more from a functional perspective. I would encourage most of you to involve process and functional engineering teams in designing the next and the new generation warehouses rather than pure architectural organizations, because the understanding of the functionality is what makes a warehouse A or B. Okay, the book also talks about various maintenance standards. This is one area where there is nothing, no focus. Maintenance of warehouse. Once leased, leased forever. Okay, there is no factor for maintenance of the cost. Landlords sitting in Kenya, South America, funding from there, they are only seeing that 11%, 8%, 10% return. Okay, they've never come here also. They're getting their money in the bank. The point is, who's going to maintain? Who will bear the cost of this building and the maintenance of this building? Maintenance is going to become, as you keep investing in higher technology, maintenance will become an important aspect. I see this as a very big business opportunity for the realtors. Just now, Mr. Amit Chugh just now shared that you can have an end-to-end relationship with the customer, and maintenance of warehouses is a big opportunity that you should also guys look at. Illumination standards. Okay, we have roof lights which do not integrate with my aisles. What is the point in having roof lights on the roof when they do not integrate with the aisle? The sunlight is not coming in the aisle. What do I do with it? It still continues to be dark in the night and in the day. So that's the detailing that I'm talking about. Security standards. I stay in Bombay, though we do projects all over the country and outside the country as well. Buildings have been built, good specifications have been used, but anybody and everybody can drive in right up to the warehouse shutter. There are no gated complexes. Even if there are nice, beautiful commands out there, there is no purpose of that command. Security, there's no security, there's nobody stopping you, where do you want to go, all this and that. And imagine, billions of dollars worth of material is kept there. From watches to mobile phones to televisions to computers to ready-made garments, jewelry, everything is kept in such situations. Of course, the thing is changing now, especially in the organized development sector. So safety and security standards are extremely essential. Amit also said that who else knows the specification? It's only the brokers. My dear friends here, I literally beg you, to enforce good specifications. You know the specifications, but you only sell what the landlord has provided you. You don't demand specifications. You have to demand the specs. Unless you demand, these specifications will not roll out. It is the customer who is demanding. It is not you who is demanding. If you want a game-changing situation here, you will have to propel that demand. OHS, green environment, sustainability, I think it's more of a CEO's talk than a broker's talk or a developer's talk. So we're very far there. A lot of things to do. Machinery. Machinery is the only interface. Either it is a truck. So one of the questions that I was asked, today morning by somebody was that, what is the difference between an A and a B? The one difference very clearly is traffic circulation. People have provided 75 feet between two warehouses. We have a lot of spaces there now. We talk of 30 meters in order to accommodate 40 feet containers. And do you now know that the sizes of vehicles in 2026 are further going to increase after all the great work that Mr. Gadkari is going to do? You will be able to deploy two vehicles of 30 feet containers connected to each other, making it a 60 feet trailer. Then see what will happen. Imagine the scenario at that point of time. Okay, traffic circulation is the last, because traffic circulation affects the overall efficiency of the logistics park. The ground coverage is going to reduce. So traffic circulation is the biggest differentiator. There are many other things that I can talk about, but I have a I'm just left with 5 minutes, So machinery, transport, human interface, material interface, all these are important aspects to understand, and they need to keep making the standards more stringent and much, I would say, richer. This is a problem to the transportation industry. We've been fighting for years on this. Has not happened. The pallet has only been able to remain itself within the warehouse, the four walls of the warehouse. When it comes to moving a pallet out on a truck, I don't think that there is enough thought being given to that, because it consumes space and reduces those additional 55 or 60 boxes that you can otherwise stuff into the warehouse. This is a lost case at this moment, unless and until transporters adopt this. And I don't think this is the forum to discuss pallet standardization. Racking standards, design stands of racks. What is UDL in a warehouse? We talk of 5 tons, 7 tons. There is no UDL. Do you know that in a warehouse there is no uniform distributed load, which is the definition of, which is the full form of UDL? Everything in a warehouse is and only is point load. From the people who are walking there, to the vehicles that are running inside the warehouse, the forklifts, to the racks which are standing on columns, everything is a point load. There are no UDLs in a warehouse. Fine. Please change that misnomer. 90% of us sitting here only understand 5 tons and 7 tons UDL. Please don't feel bad. 50% of us don't even know what is the full form of UDL. इस बात पे तो तालियां बजा दो यार. Okay. So the other chapters of standardization that we're talking about here is material handling equipment, transportation standards. Let me tell you one thing very important. A lot of you here would have participated in renting out the Flipkart, Amazon, Snapdeal, FirstCry warehouses. I have done 17 warehouses of these companies. When I talk of 17 warehouses, I mean change peer reviews and intralogistics. Some of the warehouses and some of the photographs, pictures and video that you saw earlier in the morning, are warehouses where intralogistics is designed by us. I will like to tell you that on transportation standards, we have now, do we all agree that the game has changed from only large vehicles to a combination of large and very small vehicles? And mind it, you are using the same docks and the same loading blaze to load a Tata Ace and a 40-foot container. And you have dock levelers. Do you know that there's a limitation of the dock leveler? The dock leveler is best used for incline, not for decline. Okay. And even if it declines to its full, it will not match the loading berth of a Tata Ace. Where is the thought? Where multiple, earlier we were talking about multitasking, and it said it's all bullshit. But the fact is that here, multiple vehicles also at least need to be addressed at the same bay. So, to the last part of my session here, what are the questions that the book on standardization handles? Question 1. 3 important questions. Inadequate safety provision and lack of security measure is addressed. Okay? Because shipment values and shipment fragmentation is taking place. You know what I mean by fragmentation? Now the shipment sizes are becoming smaller and smaller. You can order 1 chappal, right, Vijay? You can order 1 chappal. Okay? Earlier, minimum order quantity used to be 100 or 200, whatever. It used to go in boxes. Now you can order 1. Second question that it addresses technology. What considerations are your warehouses that are being built today or designed today are designed considering the technology that you are going to operate the warehouse with? भाई आप जब घर को किराए पे देते हैं तो as brokers you would be asking ना कि first of all are you a Hindu or a Muslim? First question. The second question is, do you have old parents or not? Do you want a mandir? When you're doing designing of residences, that's what you ask, right? So you are trying to make the residence or the flat as compatible to the family that is taking it. And therefore, it's important. Similarly, these technologies, these equipment considerations, it will address and help you in getting that answer. And finally, green operations, sustainable operations. You know, where do you need to collect the kachra? What type of kachra is created in a warehouse? Where should that be kept? That is fire prone. Do we have an external area? And so on and so forth. So all the aspects of storm water, green building compliances, IGBC, etc., are all addressed in the handbook. So this will address these three very important aspects. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, please you feel free to ask me your questions. I had to rush on this. Yeah. Yes, please. Yeah. I've seen this, you know, as the time finishes and it's end of the day, I think the event guys also become a little complacent. Yeah, please. Fortunately, we had one mic. Hello? Yeah, please.
सर मैंने आपके कई सेशंस सुने हैं.
Sorry?
और कई सारे आपके मैंने सेशंस सुने हैं. कई सारे आपके मैंने सेशंस सुने हैं.
अच्छा, आपने मेरे सेशन सुने हैं, हाँ.
जब मैं अटेंड करता हूँ, means I will love with you, sir. Means
Thank you.
we all need you. We need your expertise and knowledge. मेरे को सर दो तीन चीजें पूछनी है. जब हम फ्लोरिंग की बात करते हैं, आपने DM वर्ड यूज किया, DM. So DM1 and DM2 वो आप बताएं प्लीज क्या है, और IGBC बिल्डिंग सोलार, इसके बारे में कुछ इंपॉर्टेंस आप हम सबको बताइए.
आपका क्वेश्चन है DM1, DM2 के बारे में थोड़ा बताएं और IGBC के बारे में.
IGBC and solar.
IGBC and solar. Okay, fine. So DM1, DM2 is, DM means defined movement, and when we talk about defined movement, it means that एक particular defined aisle में जो आपका MHE है, which is the complex MHE as a VNA, जो कि 16 मीटर, 18 मीटर, 20 मीटर की हाइट पे जाएगा, वो उसी डिफाइंड पाथ पे चलेगा. सो आपको पूरा वेयरहाउस डीएम करने की जरूरत नहीं है, बिकॉज डीएम इज एन एक्सपेंस. ओके, सो देयरफॉर स्पेसिफिक मार्क्ड पाथ्स need to meet the DM standards of flatness and levelness. थोड़ा टेक्निकल हो जाएगा, but you know, so that is the meaning of DM. Okay. So that answers your first question. Fine. The second question that you asked was about IGBC. IGBC, I just want to give you a good news that I have been able to convince IGBC to make their IGBC evaluation standards for general warehousing customers, mid-sized warehousing developers a little more easier, and they have agreed to do that. So this is one thing we have achieved, okay, because we are not saying that everybody needs to be platinum certified. RK is happy to get platinum certified because he will always be compliant to everything. The Indo space, the Welspuns, Horizons, all of them will be compliant to that because they are made of that bread and butter. But when it comes to mid-sized developers, you will not have them compliant. So pre-construction की जितने भी compliances हैं, वो मैंने निकलवा दिए हैं. You have to keep an eye on total volume of earth that you have excavated, keep that record, take a picture of that, then disposal of that earth, etc. So there are several complex things. So I said that those are good for platinum rating. A normal developer, you know, he will not be able to follow that, and he doesn't want platinum rating. He just let us start by basic compliance. That's very important, you know. So that's what we've done for IGBC. Solar, yes, there is a big again debate with me that I have with all the other different architects that 57 kgs of weight has been taken on the roof. The 57 kgs of live load is a human being load. Okay, सर उसमें 18 kg का सोलार तो लग ही जाएगा. जब आप सोलार लगाओगे तो उस पे आदमी तो जाएगा ना लगाने के लिए. उसका 57 किलो कहाँ गया? You know, so what we do, we try to cut corners, and I think we as Indians are great in cutting corners, you know, and making a, you know, representation that proves that this is right. Okay, so it's a game of numbers. Solar is definitely an important, very important aspect, fine. And if you have the direction of the sun favorable to you on your project, then 100% solar should be provided for. Not today, but now you have seen the government has got policies now in the recent financial budget, fine, to promote solar. And I don't think there's any way running away from that. So please do not even try to hoodwink with solar. It will have to stay, it will have to be put in, and people like us who are on the certification side will not certify your warehouses if you don't provide for solar.
All right.
Fine.
Thank you, Dr. Siddiqui, for sharing your
Thank you very much.
wisdom and knowledge with us. We would like to honor you with a token of gratitude, and for that I would like to invite Mr. Abhijit Bhagwat, VP NAR, on this stage, West Zone. Everybody, can we please give a round of applause for Sir here?